On Press Perspective today, we touch upon the stories that shaped K-culture in 2025. Do stay with us. Hello and welcome. You're watching Press Perspective for the last day of the year 2025. I'm Min Sunhee. As the New York Times claimed in one of its latest coverage of the Korean wave in 2025, K-pop battled its demons. For more on K-culture this year, I have freelance reporter David in the studio. David, welcome back.
Good to see you, Sunny.
I also have Hanna with French weekly La Tribune Dimanche live on the line over in Paris. Hanna, it's great to have you on.
Thank you for having me here today.
Right, David, we shall start here in the studio in Seoul. I think a recent article by the Wall Street Journal, David, says it all with regard to K-pop this particular year. The coverage itself is titled, and I quote, "How K-pop Demon Hunters Finally Got Americans to Listen to K-pop." Let's begin with the global spotlight on this Netflix animation and its broader impact on the Korean wave this year.
Right. So I think just looking at the numbers really clearly paints a picture of the scale of its impact, the movie's impact. So first of all, the movie, K-pop Demon Hunters, became the most watched Netflix film of all time after it was released this year. And its title song, Golden, topped the Billboard's Top 100 chart for 8 weeks, just coming short of BTS's record of 10. And the song also received a Grammy nomination for Song of the Year. And if you look at statistics from Spotify, the world's leading streaming platform for music, 40% of first-time K-pop listeners discovered the genre through the soundtrack of the movie, which consisted of several songs, including Golden. And this also translated into other K-pop songs on Spotify, seeing noticeable increases in streaming numbers. But I think there are other indicators of K-pop's rise on the world stage. One is the dominance or the continuation of K-pop albums dominating the charts. 9 out of top 10 albums in global physical sales were from K-pop acts. And also the rise of K-pop concerts, or the popularity of these concerts worldwide, they also saw an unprecedented rise this year. According to Billboard's year-end box score charts, K-pop represented 8% of the year's top 100 tour grosses. And it meant that 4 K-pop acts were on the chart of the 40 highest grossing tours of this year. And just to give an example, Stray Kids, and this was all over the news, I think last month, Stray Kids, the boy band, sold 2.15 million tickets worldwide during their Dominate World Tour, which created $260 million in revenue. And just mind you, BTS is set to return next year around March, according to reports, and they're set to go on a world tour apparently. So yeah, these numbers are only set to increase in the future. But K-pop still has a homework that they still haven't really clearly figured out a solution to, and it is to create a bigger listener base outside of their core fan base, which they really rely on for buying their albums or going to their concerts. But I think this year we saw a significant, I should say, improvement or kind of shift with Rosé's Apartment reaching number 2 on Billboard's Top 100, also receiving a Grammy nomination for Record of the Year and Song of the Year, so it will also join K-pop Demon Hunters at the Oscars this year. And I think the reason was that the reason that I say that this has a more general mainstream approach to especially Western listeners is that the song really, I think, sounded much more familiar to the Western audiences. The song was, I think, much more closely aligned with the Western pop music, I should say. Even though K-pop, draws its influence from Western music, all the lyrics were in English and also featured Bruno Mars, obviously a global pop star. And in this sense, K-pop Demon Hunters and its songs, it was similar in the sense that its songs in its album were also created so that it would sound much more familiar to the Western audience and attract more of the Western audience to the movie. And it also used the world's biggest platform, Netflix, which was obviously great in advertising the movie. And it was produced by Sony Pictures, so it's high quality production combined with a curiosity of K-pop, which has been growing over this last decade. And also fans who are familiar with K-pop, these were the people who were really attracted to the movie. So all in all, I think this movie just did a really great job of introducing K-pop in a very funny and smart way. And also for people who know about K-pop and who grew up with K-pop, they also just had really a fun time just watching the movie and with all of its kind of witty jokes and kind of insider details about the K-pop industry.
Yeah, it was an appealing production for sure. And I wonder, based on your coverage of stories related to the Korean wave then this year for the French media, what was the most memorable for you?
Well, of course, I've covered a lot of different topics related to the Korean wave and Korean soft power this year, but I'd say two things stand out the most for me. First of all, this is the global phenomenon of K-pop Demon Hunters and the K-beauty wave spreading across Europe and the West. So first, regarding K-pop Demon Hunters, which I covered for French and Swiss media, one thing that really stands out to me is renewal. Like with its global hit Golden, the movie has clearly given a second wind to K-pop, while K-pop had already gone mainstream and reached something of a peak after BTS's massive success. And what I found particularly interesting is how a strong intergenerational bridge contributed to this renewal of Korean soft power, with children captivated by the movie and parents discovering and sometimes genuinely getting into K-pop for the first time. And until now, K-pop mainly appealed to teenagers and young adults. So this phenomenon really showed its ability to reach all generations. And secondly, regarding the K-beauty wave spreading across the West, well, European countries like France and Switzerland, which I work regularly with, are really trying to understand why Korean cosmetics have suddenly become so visible and mainstream retail in mainstream retail and supermarkets. And what I also find particularly interesting is the growing demand to understand why these products work so well. Through my K-beauty column for the Swiss magazine Le Temps, I explained the mechanisms behind trendy ingredients like PDRN, retinol, or Centella asiatica. So I really noticed there is a real appetite for scientific explanations, which helps consumers understand why these products are adopted so quickly.
Right, so beyond K-beauty, K-music, K-movies and dramas, interesting K-culture, David, this year also included stage performances and historical artifacts. Could you tell us a bit more about this particular phenomenon and the factors that fueled it this year?
Right. So in terms of stage performances, it was really highlighted by the Korean original musical Maybe Happy Ending winning 6 Tony Awards this year. And the Tony Awards are kind of the equivalent to the Oscars to movies. So for fans of Korean musicals, they were having reflections of Parasite back in 2020 at the Oscars. And I think this goes hand in hand with the government, South Korean government, committing to providing more assistance and funding to K-musicals. So just this year, there was a record number of 70 new original Korean musicals introduced to fans worldwide. And part of the reason that it's getting so much global attention, but especially in South Korea, is that K-pop singers regularly star in these musicals, which bring in their fan base to the musical industry, but also creates a lot of noise on social media and a lot of attention, new attention. But this rise in K-musicals also coincided with the rise in other cultural habits, such as attending or going to music festivals or concerts. And I think it really has to do with the post-pandemic period trend the trend in the post-pandemic period where people, especially the younger demographic, they really place a great importance in buying experiences. So going to these concerts, going to these shows and events. But yeah, South Korea also witnessed other cultural and literary achievements, such as Hangang winning the Nobel Prize for Literature. Although this was from the end of last year, it really created a craze this year in people buying her books, more interested in her previous works, and also just people around the world being interested in Korean literature, which is lesser known to Korean film or Korean music. And also, the National Museum of Korea also achieved a great feat this year by seeing more than 6 million visitors enter through its doors. And that meant that the National Museum of Korea entered a very exclusive list of museums around the world, such as ones in Paris, London, and Beijing, that welcome more than 6 million visitors every year. I think there's only maybe 8 or 10 that achieve this every year. And one thing that was really highlighted in the news this year was that the merchandise inside the National Museum of Korea, which are products drawing on South Korea's cultural heritage and folklore, brought in nearly $24 million in revenue. So that was very significant. And a lot of people attributed this increased interest in the museum to the popularity of K-pop Demon Hunters and how it included symbols and representations of ancient clothing like gat or hanbok, and symbols like the tiger and magpie in the movie. But I also think that a major reason was there's just a greater general interest in the country of South Korea, and as Anna mentioned, in cosmetics, to music, to movies. So, and you can see this really in the record number of foreign visitors who traveled to Korea this year.
Right, and staying with that, Anna, South Korea, as David just mentioned, it's poised to post a record, a fresh record that is, in the number of foreign visitors, at over 18.7 million this year. What do you suppose has been the impact of the Korean wave on the country's tourism and soft power, if you will?
Well, indeed, this year, there has been a lot of discussion about the positive impact of the Korean wave, and especially the movie K-pop Demon Hunters on the increase of tourists in Seoul and across South Korea. And one explanation could be like, with this movie, Korea has moved beyond exporting cultural products like Squid Game, BTS, or Parasite to create a global imagination. So by that, I mean Seoul has become a credible setting for action and collective fantasy. In this movie, for example, people dream, dance, and fight in Seoul. So consequently, the movie's iconic locations have quickly become must-visit spots for tourists and international exchange students there. And one of the keys to the film's success is its perfect balance between traditional references to Korean folklore and all the modern elements that have boosted K-pop internationally so far, like K-pop, K-food, and love scenes reminiscent to K-dramas. So according to critics and academics, this unprecedented mix is reflected in tourism. So this summer, for example, the Seoul K-Medi Center, which is a museum and experience hall dedicated to traditional medicine. So its international visitors increased thanks to its resemblance to the Hallyu, which is like a Korean traditional medical clinic featured in the movie. And also the National Museum of Korea promoting like the tiger and magpie characters from the movie, inspired by Korean traditional paintings, welcomed more than twice as many visitors in July compared to last year. So with this surge in tourism, that shows how deeply the film has resonated with global audiences. The phenomenon even caught the attention of politicians. So as you know, on a talk show on Arirang TV on August 20th, even President Lee Jae-myung described K-culture, saying that it has now become the main driver of national power.
Right, indeed. And against that backdrop, and on a more thought-provoking note, the New York Times published an article, David, saying that 2025 has been a year that underscored the tension between K-pop as an art form and K-pop as an industry. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so while a lot of the attention this year has been geared towards K-pop seeming to dominate the world stage or seeming to start dominating the world stage, I think a lot of analysts and fans have really speculated on how there seems to be a limit to the industry's current system. And even at home in South Korea, K-pop acts have mentioned, gone on record on saying how it's much more difficult nowadays for their songs to top the domestic music charts or even rank in the top 100 of these charts. And I think it's a real sign of fans sort of saying that they're a bit tired of listening to songs that sound similar, sort of going on with this cookie cutter approach where artists or K-pop groups they follow the similar styles and formulas that have worked in the past. And I think this has in turn given rise to new subgenres in South Korea that have reached unprecedented popularity for South Korean listeners, which includes rock, so band music, hyperpop, hip hop, dance music. Just to give an example, Effie, who is an underground artist, usually associated with the hyperpop scene, she was shortlisted in New York Times Best Albums of 2025. So you can just tell that the listeners in South Korea, they want something more fresh and new. And in line with this topic, I don't think we can forget to mention New Jeans, who really were the group that represented this new, bright kind of hope, I should say, for K-pop and bringing something new to the table for the industry. And even if the group, New Jeans, they lost in their legal battle and lost in front of the public consensus, you could clearly see that fans were initially cheering for the group and their producer or creative director, Min Sunhee, in the beginning of the legal dispute. And I think the reason is that many people saw the battle between a very creative new group against Hybe, or Adore, I guess, which they represent sort of the hierarchy of the K-pop conglomerate system, which I mentioned that while they do maintain their success, they have shown a pattern of following their footsteps in the past that have worked. And fans, I think, are also concerning to the New Jeans case. They were tired of hearing about these cases of K-pop groups being micromanaged and having little freedom from their agencies. So, with recent news that the New Jeans, their 5 members, all 5 members will not return to the group to Adore, meaning that the group will not be the same, I don't think, unfortunately. So I think this is a big loss for the industry. There was a lot of great excitement worldwide. They were signed as ambassadors to brands such as Coca-Cola and many other brands in South Korea. And they were topping charts with every song that they released. So, but also at the other hand, I think there is still hope in new groups coming out, such as Hybe's Cortez or Black Label's ADP. And these groups, they have artists who really have a big influence on the music that they produce. So, yeah, we'll have to see what next year brings for K-pop, but it'll be interesting with the change in dynamics of new genes and the arrival of new groups.
Right, well, we'll be keeping our eye on that then. Meanwhile, on the silver screen, Anna, director Park Chan-wook's latest production, No Other Choice, it's playing across the US. That being said, what has been the global response to this K-movie?
Yeah, well, No Other Choice tells the story of an office worker at a paper mill who was suddenly let go after 25 years, just for the film and its context of production. So devastated by the loss of his statues and the life he built for his wife and children, he feels he has no choice but to eliminate his rivals to secure a new position. So for this film, which is adapted from an American novel, Park Chan-wook initially tried for 12 years to get Hollywood financing, but being offered insufficient budgets, he returned to South Korea, which allowed him to cast Korean actors and add local cultural touches. So regarding the response to this K movie, I would say that the film has been very well received internationally so far, even if in the United States, where Park initially struggled to secure funding. And the movie has been showcased at several film festivals too. It won the International People's Choice Award at the Toronto International Film Festival in Canada and an International Audience Award at the Savannah Film Festival in the US. And furthermore, it received 3 Golden Globes nominations. And so far, critics and media observers have noted that elements like the film's dark humor, social commentary, and suspense are reminiscent of Bong Joon-ho's movie Parasite, which won the Oscar for Best Picture in 2020. So following in its footsteps, No Other Choice shows how Korean cinema continued to captivate international audiences and is now seen as an important part of the global movie scene.
Right, and despite the global interest in K-screen productions, David, prospects for the film industry here are reportedly quite grim. Could you explain this reality for us?
So the big talk of the town in the movie industry this year was that no movie, foreign or domestic, had more than or reached 10 million admissions in the movie theaters this year, which is kind of the big milestone for movies in South Korea. And the top 2 biggest grossing movies this year had sold less than 8 million tickets. And both of them, the top 2 movies this year, were foreign animations, Zootopia and Demon Slayers. So just to throw some statistics around, admissions in movie theaters have fallen 45% since 2019, so the year before the pandemic, while box office revenue has dropped 1.3 billion in revenue to $812 million. And also in the news earlier this year they were talking about how Lotte Cinema and Megabox, the number 2 and number 3 movie theater chains in the country, have agreed on a merger, which will happen later. And experts who have closely monitored this phenomenon, recent phenomenon, they say that years of tightening margins and rising costs thinned out mid-budget films, which were really where new directors, new talent would arrive on the scene, and where established directors would be more experimental. Because there's so much risk with movies, and especially in the South Korean industry, where it's much more smaller than industries in the US or France, there's real pressure to succeed, to reach that 10 million admissions mark, which is very high, or even to reach more than 2 million. So kind of like what I said about K-pop, they really follow a formula that's very familiar to the Korean audience, rather than experimenting, going out of their way to create something different, I guess. And I think a lot of experts have commented how this type of system really limits the possibility of producing movies such as Parasite or No Other Choice. And so consequently, a lot of the talent in the movie industry have moved to the streaming platforms, which have seen a great increase in series and dramas and variety shows, but not movies. And this also coincides with a lot of major studios, I think this is a global phenomenon, by the way, and major studios such as Warner Brothers, they are starting to release movies on these streaming platforms like Netflix. And the holdback window, which is the period between the release of a movie in the cinema and the arrival on streaming platforms, it's getting shorter every year, every month. So I think this is a very kind of a global phenomenon, and I think a lot of people, they were very surprised when they heard that Netflix was agreed to merge with Warner Brothers, which is going to just make people stay inside their homes to watch movies or dramas more than going to the movie theaters. So as of now, like you said, the movie industry is looking pretty grim.
Right. Hopefully the new year will bring a different scene
much more new movies and new talent.
We'll keep our fingers crossed for that. I'm afraid that's all the time we have. David, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you, Sunny.
And Anna over in Paris, thank you very much for your insights today.
Thank you so much.
Right, on that note, we say goodbye for this final edition of Press Perspective for the year 2025. From all of us here at Arirang, Happy New Year, and see you same time on Friday as we rest tomorrow, that is Thursday, January 1st, to mark the New Year celebration. Thank you for watching.